Our Lady of Salvation, also known as Our Lady of Light, is a Catholic title of the Blessed Virgin Mary as the Co-Redemptrix of mankind. The devotion to Our Lady of Salvation is based on a wooden statue of the Virgin Mary that was first venerated in Joroan in the Philippines. The image was canonically crowned by the Catholic Church on the 25th of August 1976 as the heavenly patroness of the province of Albay. Description: the original 18th century image of Our Lady of Salvation reflects her role, according to Catholic doctrine, as Co-Redemptrix. The Virgin is portrayed as carrying the Christ child in her left arm, while her right arm grasps a man by the wrist as he is about to fall into a gaping hellmouth. An angel kneels at the foot of the Virgin, offering a basket of burning hearts to Christ, who holds a burning heart in his right hand, while his left hand is stretched in a gesture of accepting the hearts. History: much of the history regarding the statue of the Lady of Salvation and the Marian devotion centered on it rely heavily on the written accounts, based on tradition, of the first parish priest of Joroan, Rev. Lamberto S. Fully, in his booklet En Casa y Can Le Duan ni Virgen de Salvacion, the Calpi tree. According to the Fully account, in the 1770s a certain haciendero named Don Silverio Arquilla of Buhi assigned a tenant farmer called Mariano de Coba to one of his vast estates in Joroan, which was a satellite barrio of Buhi. While de Coba was clearing parts of Arquilla's hacienda one day, he chopped down a big calpi tree. Although already severed at the base, the tree's leaves did not wilt and maintained its life and freshness. The tenant informed Arquilla about it, and the latter consulted with the pastor of Buhi. A certain sculptor called Bagacumba was commissioned by the pastor of Buhi to carve an image from the calpi trunk that de Coba had found. 3 images were carved out of the wood, that of Our Lady of Salvation, one of Our Lady of Solitude, and that of St. Anthony of Padua. On the 25th of August 1776, the image of Our Lady of Salvation was lent to Joroan on condition that the village's residents build a chapel at the center of the barrio. Consequently, a certain Satera Cababag was assigned as the chapel's hermana mayor, in charge of caring for the image. The 1853 agreement. Buhi was initially the image's rightful owner, as Arquilla, the parish priest who had commissioned, and the sculptor were all from the town. On the 21st of January 1853, Buhi and Joroan had an agreement transferring rights over the image to the latter. Buhi's parish priest and gobernador Silo, Rev. Antonio Guadalajara and Mariano Buenaflor, respectively, made the pact with Joroan's barrio lieutenants. In accordance with the agreement, Buhi surrendered all its rights over the image if the people of Joroan made an offering of 50 pesos, and an additional 25 for a bell. Miracles. First miracle. Joroan, according to Fully, was often the target of Muslim marauders due to its proximity to the sea. During an attack, the people of Joroan would flock to the image and pray to the Virgin for protection. Tradition notes that Muslims pillaging Joroan would constantly fail to ignite houses, and this was attributed to the Virgin. Deliverance of Hermana Tiri. The second miracle was when a Hermana Mera known only as Tiri was captured in a Moro raid. After a year of being held captive in Sulu, Tiri fell into a deep sleep and upon waking up, had realized that she was not in her quarters but was standing in an unknown forest. She then saw in a strange white deer in the woods, which she, out of curiosity, followed through the mountains until she lost sight of it. Tiri discovered that she had already been miraculously transported to Legazpi, and was now only 38 kilometers away from Joroan. After this incident, the people of Joroan moved the chapel further away from the sea to a higher location in the mountains, in order to avoid its desecration by raiders. Apparition. The third miracle was an apparition of Our Lady of Salvation. 4 devotees from the island of Catanduanes went on a pilgrimage to Joroan, bringing along with them a set of beeswax candles which they intended to offer at the shrine. Upon reaching shore, 3 of them made a detour to Buhi to light candles for St. Anthony, while the 4th pilgrim was left to guard the boat. As the 4th man strolled along the beach at dusk, he met a woman carrying her child. The woman asked him for a candle as she may light her way home to the mountains, as it was almost dark. The man refused since the candle was not his, but the woman was insistent and promised that she would return the candle the next morning if he would come to her house uphill. Out of generosity, the man acquiesced to the lady, who told him he can the next day inquire where she lived from the town lieutenant of Joroan, so that she can return him his candle. The next day, the man did as he was told, but the town lieutenant did not know where the mysterious lady lived. The lieutenant referred the pilgrim to the Hermina Mare, who was also of no help, save for advising the man to seek divine guidance at the chapel of Our Lady of Salvation. Upon arriving at the chapel, the pilgrim was surprised when, at the foot of the image, lay unused and unlit exactly the same candle which he had lent the mysterious lady the day before. Upon seeing that the image resembled the mysterious woman, the man was filled with compunction, and after leaving the candle alone, prostrated and asked the Virgin to pray for his sins. Final Muslim raid. The 4th miracle attributed to Our Lady of Salvation occurred during the years that Domingo de los Reyes succeeded Tiri as Hermina Mare. While on one of the raids, the Moro pirates were said to have retreated almost immediately after seeing a vision of heavily armed men. The vision was said to have traumatized the raiders so much that it was the last Muslim attack on the shores of Joroan. The boat. On the eve of the Feast of Our Lady of Salvation in 1884, a group from the Partido was sailing to Joroan when a whirlwind attacked the boat. Giant waves almost capsized the boat, which suddenly regained its balance. Even though they were almost dumped into the water, the passengers' clothes were completely dry as though freshly ironed. The people in the boat attributed their escape from death to Our Lady of Salvation. Boundary dispute. In the late 19th century, a territorial dispute arose over whether Joroan was governed from Buhi in Ambos Camarines, or Tiwi in Albay. A Captain Vera of Albay, however, argued that Tiwi's proximity to Joroan gave it rightful jurisdiction. Vera won the case, and Joroan was annexed by Tiwi. Construction of a new church. Joroan became very peaceful in the 1860s, as the boundary dispute was resolved, and the Muslims no longer attacked the barrio. During this time, Doña Clara de Vera, the wife of a certain landlord named Don Vicente de Vera, became the image's Hermina Mare. Doña Clara vowed to care for the image until her death, and financed its silver and gold plating. Unsatisfied with her lifetime service, de Vera initiated construction of a new church at the center of the Joroan. In her eagerness to construct, she sought the help of her friend, Doña Saturnina de Baet of Tobacco, to finance the project. Another acquaintance, Don Manuel Casa of Manila, also contributed greatly, sending the needed materials and an architect. During the long trip to Joroan, the architect Casa had dispatched fell seriously ill, and men had to support him as he supervised construction. After a great deal of pain, the architect was suddenly cured on the 9th day of his work. Disputes with Tiwi Traslacion. After the church was finished, the image was translated from the mountain chapel to the new shrine, beginning the annual custom of the image's translation to Tiwi. The people of Tiwi were also ardent devotees of Our Lady of Salvation. Tradition gives account that whenever the fiesta in Tiwi was approaching, the parish priest would personally retrieve the image from Joroan. The arrival of the image in Tiwi was a moment of great rejoicing, and a band would accompany its entry into the town. The practice was cut short by the typhoon that devastated Joroan in 1895. The chapel was completely destroyed, but the image was miraculously still standing intact on its pedestal. The people of Joroan reconstructed half of the chapel from the debris, but later on everything deteriorated. A long and bitter rift between the peoples of Joroan and Tiwi began, and since the former was under the rule of the latter, Rev. Francisco Borondia took the image to Tiwi until a proper chapel was built in Joroan. This meant that the direction of the translation was reversed, and it was now the people of Joroan who borrowed the image during fiestas, an arrangement they greatly resented. They almost lost the right to it. That is why they had spent a lot of time, effort, and money to recover it, and had to inevitably incur the ire of the people of Tiwi. Disputes with Ricardo Sason in 1917. Joroan planned to hold a grand celebration from the beginning of the novena honoring the image up to a few days after the fiesta. On the 9th day, the people of Joroan requested of Rev. Ricardo Sason, the Tiwi parish priest, that the image be allowed to stay a little longer in Joroan so that might make further homage to the Virgin. Sason refused, and arrogantly taunted the people, daring them to file a complaint at court. The people of Joroan drafted a letter to Most Rev. John Bernard McGinley, Bishop of Nueva Cáceres, requesting designation of a separate pastor for Joroan. Pedro Cola and Lino Clutario were tasked to deliver the request, and immediately set out for the sea in Naga, but turned back since McGinley was visiting Albay. The emissaries overtook McGinley in Ariga, but the bishop refused to discuss the matter there, suggesting that they talk about it in Malinaw on the 17th of November 1917. On the appointed date, Joroan again sent Clutario, this time with Miguel Dialata, and the brothers Felipe and Lorenzo Clutario. Lino Clutario was the group's spokesman, as he had the best command of English. During their audience, Clutario told Bishop McGinley that Joroan wanted a separate pastor for the barrio, and that the image of Our Lady of Salvation be ordered returned to them. The bishop declined the first request due to a lack of priests in his diocese, but contemplated on the second with the order of the verification of the origin of the image. Another audience was set for 2 days later, this time with Tiwi as the venue, but nothing favorable for the people of Joroan resulted from the conference. The issue was brought to court, with Narciso Cultivo spearheading the case of the real owner of the image and Domingo Imperial as lawyer. The civil court, however, deemed it an ecclesiastical matter and soon dropped it, endorsing the case to Bishop McGinley. Creation of Joroan Parish. In 1918, Rev. Tomás Pinales succeeded Sason as pastor of Tiwi. Bishop McGinley authorized him to settle the dispute with Joroan. In May of that year, Councillor Alfajara and Lieutenant Cultivo of Joroan met with Pinales, and both sides agreed that Joroan was to become a separate parish covering Sogod, Matale Bong, Bais Mainanong, Misibis Dap Amayong. Bishop McGinley was informed of the agreement, and named Rev. Lamberto S. Fully as its first parish priest. The parish of Joroan was canonically erected on the 18th of September 1919, with Fully assuming duties as Kuya on the 8th of October. The image of the Lady of Salvation was still in Tiwi, so in accordance with the 1918 agreement, another translation was scheduled for the 20th of November 1919. Joroan Church had no proper paraphernalia for the time being. so Bernales lent some of his things, while donations began to pour in from all over Albay to the newly established parish. The images was greeted with fireworks as its boat docked at Joroan, and the great jubilation among the townsfolk. Early the next morning, a solemn high mass was celebrated with a huge number of pilgrims from all over the Bicollandia in attendance. Also present were the vicar forain, the pastors of Tiwi, Tobacco, and Nabua, the governor of Albay, the board members of the provincial government, the municipal president, the municipal council, and other prominent people. Among the terms of agreement made when Joroan was raised to the status of parish was the Episcopal Decree Constantinos of the 18th of September 1919. The decree states that menos que acute por el espacio de 15 días continuos cada no puede estar en la iglesia de Tiwi, bajo instrucción del párroco de Tiwi, para el debido culto de los fieles, y se ordena que la transferencia y conducción anual a Tiwi sean hechos con todo decoro y solemnidad conveniente. Although already a parish by now, Joroan still had several issues. The decree was no guarantee that the image was now fully in Joroan's possession, so a committee was organized with the purpose of appealing to Bishop McGinley for the decree's revision and removal of the clause, except for a span of 15 days. McGinley rejected the request by further stating that the decree is part of the terms of agreement for the elevation of Joroan to the status of a parish, and that its representatives signed it. Rising tensions in 1920, Joroan was reminded to comply with the decree. The people, however, were still adamant for fear that something unfavorable might happen, and majority of the people, especially the women, no longer favored the idea of lending the image of the Lady of Salvation to Tiwi. This prompted Bishop McGinley to dispatch to Joroan Fr. Luis de Maruba, a priest vested with ecclesiastical authority, to advise the people regarding their insolence, and to persuade them about the urgency of lending the image to Tiwi since the fiesta was approaching. However, it was only after the encouragement and assurance of the image's return by the parish priest that led the people to reluctantly lend Tiwi the image. On the 6th of August 1920, a cohort with Bernales leading them arrived in Joroan to take the image. Before the image was taken, Bernales reassured the people that the image shall be returned after 15 days. The absence of the image in the altar of the church made the people of Joroan so anxious that they never lost track of the 15-day promise. However, realizing that Tiwi had not yet returned the image even though the 15-day agreement had already expired, the people dispatched a big boat to Tiwi so that they could remind Bernales that the agreement had already expired, and also to personally get the image. The August riot when fully greeted Bernales. The latter was compelled to return the image. A huge number of people from Tiwi were present in the church to bid the image farewell. However, when the image was about to be handed over to Fully, one of the onlookers screamed and seized the image from Bernales. The visitors from Joroan cried foul and rioting ensued. The message was clear. The people of Tiwi refused to give back the image by violently declaring that the image was theirs. This claim is backed by the alleged testimony of the elders of Tiwi that the image in question was just a copy of the original. The copy belonged to Tiwi, while the original was Joroan's. Folklore held that in those days there was an antique image of Our Lady of Salvation, and that the image's hermana mare was a certain Maite. When it was still in a good condition, it used to be brought down to the chapel whenever the image was in Tiwi, but that this has already been deteriorated with age. The people of Joroan abandoned it, and that the title of Our Lady of Salvation, which the present image now bears, originated from this antique image. final settlement fully seeing that the brawl would do no good, advised his parishioners to go home instead. He then wrote a letter to Bishop McGinley about the heightened tensions between the peoples of Joroan and The. In response, McGinley reassured Joroan that the image will be returned to them. Owing to the previous rioting, the image was kept in the house of Vicente Vera for more than a month, and it was only on the 28th of September of that year that the image was returned to Joroan. To prevent future violence, Bishop McGinley on the 18th of August 1920 declared that, to keep the ardor of the same Marian devotion in The and to prevent further tensions, McGinley also permitted the creation of a replica for The. The original image has been permanently enshrined in Joroan since 1920. Later years. Coronation. On the 8th of December 1975, Teotomo Pacis, the Bishop of Legazpi, formally declared the Virgin Mary, under the title of Our Lady of Salvation, as the heavenly patronesses of Albay. In 1976, the diocese formally celebrated the bicentennial jubilee of its patroness. One of the projects during the bicentennial was the completion of the shrine. The original design of the shrine was the handiwork of Juanito Pelia of The, but was later redesigned and finished under the supervision of Fidel Siapo of Legazpi City. After its completion, Bishop Pacis blessed the shrine on the 21st of August 1976. On the 25th of August, as a culmination to the bicentennial year, Jaime Cardinal Sin, the Archbishop of Manila, crowned Our Lady of Salvation, while the Joroan Church was proclaimed a diocesan shrine. Veneration. Every year, during the month of August until September, devotees from all over the Bicol region visit the Shrine of the Lady of Salvation in Joroan. The last Saturday of August is traditionally reserved as a special day of veneration wherein pilgrims would walk in a procession for 9 kilometers from the St. Lawrence Church of The to the diocesan shrine in Joroan. In Barangay Pasadena, San Juan, Metro Manila, the image is feted on the third weekend of May with a mass and procession. Gallery.